Giants lose the series to the inferior Angels, and it had a lot to do with poor situational hitting in the middle game of the series, but a lot of great things in the finale of the series, and the Elliot Ramos breakout just absolutely continues.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, been hosting this show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And coming up on today's show, yes, we're going to be breaking down the fact that the Giants did lose 2 out of 3 to the Angels here over the weekend, which is definitely a disappointing outcome. But nonetheless, there were a lot of good things that happened in the most recent game, and also they really should have probably won this series. They kind of shot themselves in the foot in the middle game with so many opportunities to score more runs than they did, but not being able to do so. But in the meantime, stay hot, Elliot Ramos. We'll also get into more on Brett Wisley having his kind of under-the-radar breakout that's being overshadowed by Heliot Ramos, and then some closer controversy with Camilo Doval just kind of imploding here as of late, and it might be time to make a change. So a lot coming up, but I want to get into Heliot Ramos just because this guy is one of the better stories in baseball so far this season, I would say. I mean, we're still in the small sample land of 35 games, but we're at 150 plate appearances for Ramos now, and all he's done is hit .326 with a .404 on base and .561 slugging. He's been the Giants' best position player, even though he's played far fewer games than anyone else. He's produced more value than any other position player. Not anyone else, but there are some players who've played close to 70 games, like Matt Chapman, for example, Thairo Estrada. And Ramos has produced more value than either of them or anybody else on the position player side. And the projections, every day that Ramos continues to hit, the projection systems kind of buy more and more into that this is an above average major league hitter. And above average sounds like it's selling him short right now because he's playing like a star impact player. But there's still room for regression here. A .427 batting average on balls in play, just not going to be that high when all is said and done. But, we've got the steamer projection system with Ramos 7% above average moving forward. Zips with Ramos 12% above average moving forward. The bat and the bat X at around 5% above average moving forward. So none of those are going to blow you away. But coming into the season, these were all, projections for him were 20% below average. And so that's what I'm saying. Every day that he just continues to do this is just how projection systems work. They buy into it more and more and more. And so in this series, Ramos, he went 2 for 3 with 2 walks in the series opener, including a home run in the Giants' 8-6 loss. And then in the middle game of the series, he went 3 for 5 with 2 doubles and a homer, and then in the finale he goes 2 for 6 with no homers. Oh my goodness, how could he possibly? Just 2 singles. Wow, what a poor game for him. 2 for 6 with 2 singles. So he just had another amazing series, and it's just incredible what he's been able to do. And, given an opportunity to play, which, we obviously said, and I point out a million times that we said it on the show a million times, that guys get hurt and young players get opportunities. And I think this is, Bob Melvin deserves some credit here for being, letting Elliot Ramos play. I think that if Gabe Kapler was still managing, there's a chance that none of this happens, to be honest, because when Kapler was managing, they were just really, really kind of easing off of Elliot Ramos when it came to facing right-handed pitching. And so this is an example of sometimes just letting a guy just sink or swim and just saying, here, let's see what you can do, and giving him that runway, so to speak, of opportunity to sink or swim. And so far he has very much swam. And he's only 24 years old. It's not like this is an old prospect per se. A lot of guys debut at around this age anyway, and he will be 25 in September. But, Ramos, he's been in the system forever. He was drafted in the first round in 2017, 19th overall pick by the Giants. This is under the previous regime. So this is a previous regime draft pick. And, he's a guy, if you look at the minor league numbers for him in 2022 in AAA, he had a 65 weighted runs created plus. In 2023 in AAA, he had he was better, much better, at 120 weighted runs created plus. And then he kind of carried that over into 2024 and was really good in AAA, and he's just carried it straight into the major leagues. So I do expect eventually that he'll cool off to some extent. You're not going to maintain an average on balls in play of 427, but all the projections agree that he's going to be a guy who has an average on balls in play that's above average. And so he's got that going for him. He's got a lot going for him right now. He's also played good defense. We've repeated this over and over, but just to me, it's impossible to ignore what Elliot Ramos is doing, and it's just clearly, so far, that's the beauty of baseball. You just don't know what's going to happen, and you could have guessed that this could happen, but it wouldn't have been high on my list of guesses as to what would be going on. 70 games into the 2024 season would be that Elliot Ramos was playing like a star and was looking like, the best story of the season so far for the Giants. So just like the first, 70 games, were a mystery that we had to see unfold, to believe, the next, 90 games is going to be the same thing. We don't know how it's going to unfold. Guys like Jorge Soler could have a huge second half. Guys like Elliot Ramos could fall apart. You could see other young players kind of emerge. You could see all the pitching that the Giants have coming back, either playing really well or kind of struggling through coming back from injuries, etc. So there's just so much about baseball that is unknown, and that's kind of the beauty of it. And that's why I'm particularly, it's just, Ramos is a great kid, and just to see him get this opportunity and to do what he's doing has just been so much fun to watch. And I think any Giants fan would agree and is just thrilled with what we're seeing here. So let's not sleep on Brett Wisley, though, too. It's a smaller sample and it's not quite as loud of a performance, but I do want to get into him and so much more. Camilo Doval, big time struggles right now. And is it time for a change at closer? That's what we're talking here. And then Kyle Harrison to the injured list. Spencer Bivens steps up in his place and has a big outing in his major league debut. Quite a journey to get here. So we'll get into all of that momentarily, and before we do, today's episode is brought to you in part by our good friends over at FanDuel. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and more, and you can bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on everything from the Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. I'm going to FanDuel right now and going to look at the Giants versus Cubs coming up tonight, and the Giants are underdogs at plus 100 on the money line. And let's see, no, does that make them favorite? Sometimes I have a hard time understanding these lines. But at the run spread is at minus 1.5 for the Giants with plus 150 odds. So yeah, that makes the Giants the favorites here with Jordan Hicks on the mound, and the over/under in this game set at 10.5 runs. So the wind must be blowing out at Wrigley. But Jordan Hicks, such a sinker baller, I might be tempted to take the under on that. So there's a lot you can check out: NBA Finals and so much more. Game 5 with the Celtics as big favorites there with a money line of minus 270. So again, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bring home that win. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It is the most fun, exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can now win 100 times your money with baseball-only lineups on Prize Picks. If you submit a winning lineup featuring 4 demon squares, you'll cash in big time on the biggest moments of baseball's early/mid season right now. Best of all for me is that Prize Picks is available to play in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. So I'm logging into Prize Picks right now on my phone, as I do every day, and checking out what's going on with the Giants here. And we said the wind must be blowing out. That's something I would look into. But, Elliot Ramos, more than half an RBI. That's one of the, what do they call it, demon squares. I'm going to take more than half an RBI for Elliot Ramos. And then I'm going to take, more than 15.5 outs for Jordan Hicks. And if you do those and you play for 20, you win 100 back. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today, use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less, it's that easy. All right, as promised, we're going to get into so much more that there is to cover. Brett Wisley, closer controversy, Spencer Bivens making his MLB debut and impressing, and Kyle Harrison going on the injured list, just adding to the long line of Giants players who have gone down both in the starting rotation and on the offensive side. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we're going to be breaking down game 1 of this 3-game series in Chicago with, like I said, Jordan Hicks on the mound for the Giants, Javier Assad on the mound for the Cubs. And this guy's been a pretty good pitcher. If you look at the numbers in his career and on the season, Javier Assad is kind of quietly a pretty darn good pitcher for the Cubs. And so we'll be breaking that one down. It's a good pitching matchup tonight in Chicago. And just a reminder that if you're watching ESPN or Fox Sports on your TV all day, do you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV Channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A reminder, too, that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. All right, so before we get into the closer controversy, I just want to give a shout-out to Brett Wisley, who, I'm just so impressed with the at-bat quality. And one of the things I just continue to point out is that last year, Brett Wisley, hit 131 plate appearances, 51 games, at the major league level. And his zone contact rate, so when he swung at a pitch that was a strike, essentially, he only made contact 77.5% of the time. This year, when he swung at a pitch that's in the strike zone, he's made contact 94.5% of the time. So almost all of the time. So there's just this huge improvement in making contact when he's swinging at strikes. I could look too at his out of the zone contact, but that's less important. You really want to make sure when you're getting pitches to hit that you're hitting them, and as a result, his strikeout rate last year was 30.5%, and this year it's 21.4%. So almost a 10 percentage point drop in strikeout rate. And what his stance is totally different. He's playing shortstop at a time when they've needed help in that department, and Nick Ahmed, yes, is back on the roster, but Nick Ahmed is now being platooned with Brett Wisley getting the lion's share of the playing time. And I think, for good reason, because of what we're seeing from Wisley. But what I will also say is, I haven't even looked this up, but I just have noticed when Brett Wisley has faced a left-handed pitcher, he has not looked uncomfortable at all. And that was the case in Sunday's blowout. Because the Giants roughed up the Angels pitching so much, Wisley ended up facing a lefty at some point and just hit a rocket into the gap. And so he's just hitting very well against lefties, has been what I've seen. And so what do the numbers have to say about that? Okay, so he's had 16 plate appearances against lefties, and he's hitting .563 with a .938 slugging. So obviously, 16 plate appearances is a small sample, but he's had 9 hits in 16 plate appearances against lefties. That's just ridiculous. And against righties, I would imagine, maybe he's not even been good. Yeah, the numbers aren't actually good against righties, with a .235 average, .259 on base, .333 slugging. So I chalk all of that up to small sample and just kind of read more into the fact that he's hitting overall very, very well. And when you see someone with a changed stance, and then you just can witness the at-bat quality being so much better, and you see him just hanging in there, lefty, righty, doesn't matter, and the zone contact and all that, it just warrants conversation for sure. And, again, this is a young player. He's 25 years old. Just turned 25 in May. And so all of a sudden, there is a lot of young talent on the Giants. I'm not saying Wisley's a star or anything like that, but they have had a knack for kind of finding unheralded players like Lamont Wade, Tyro Estrada, and Mike Yastrzemski. And those are some good examples. I mean, those guys, especially Wade and Estrada, Yaz has kind of become, I guess, especially Wade, and what he was able to do 2021, and then to start this season in particular, and last season he was good too. These were guys they all got for basically nothing, and seeing a lot of good performance. And Wisley, it's worth paying attention to what he's doing, playing 17 games at short. He's played center in his career. So yeah, loving what I'm seeing from Brett Wisley. But what I'm not loving is what I'm seeing from Camilo Doval right now, who came into this game, and I don't buy into at all maybe not at all, maybe that's the wrong way to put it, but just because it wasn't a save situation, they got to get Doval right. And so he needs to come into a game, even if it was 13-2, he needs to get into a game and just kind of get back on track, because they're putting him out there in high leverage situations, and he's struggling to throw strikes and giving up runs and walking people and on and on and on. So I have no problem with putting him into a 13-2 game in the ninth. But he comes in and he ends up pitching a third of an inning and giving up 4 earned runs, 4 hits, 2 walks, no strikeouts. So just a dreadful outing for Camilo Doval, raising his season ERA to almost 5 at 4.88. Expected ERA 4.34, fielding independent pitching 4.31, and a walk rate of about 16%. In his career, it's it was only over 10% once in his 3 other seasons, and that was 10.5%. And so now it's 16% this year. So strike throwing has been just the biggest struggle for Doval, and that was a big struggle yesterday. And it's definitely closer controversy time, I think, because say it's a 1-run game tonight. Like, do you really trust a 1-run lead, in the 9th? Do you really trust on the road Camilo Doval to come into that situation right now? I think the answer is no. And there are some guys, and one guy in particular, who I think the answer is yes, you do trust them in pretty much any situation, and that's Ryan Walker, who came in to clean up Doval's mess. And I'm not trying to be harsh on Doval. I think, since he came into the league, he's been one of the better relievers in the game. Even with this season going, we're talking 27 and 2/3 innings. It's not a big sample right now, but even with the struggles this season, he still has a career ERA of 3.08. Ryan Walker, for example, career ERA of 2.93. So those are really similar. And I'm pretty sure Doval's career ERA entering the season was around that. It was 2.77. And so Ryan Walker still has room to have a bad season and end up in the same place. But right now, Ryan Walker is just throwing strikes and striking people out. He's got a walk rate of 4.8% on the season, again, compared to 16%, 15.9% for Doval. And Walker's strikeout rate is 32.9%, so almost exactly a third of batters he's faced, he's struck out, which is really high. And for Doval, his career strikeout rate is around 30%, but right now this year it's only 26.5%. And so I think, in my opinion, like, you may see this where Ryan Walker suddenly takes over that closer's role. Like, if there's a 1-run game, it depends on, did he pitch has he pitched in multiple games in a row? And I can easily see that. He did pitch in the middle game of the series. Did he pitch in the first game of the series? He did not. So he's pitched 2 games in a row. So actually, I'm not so sure that they would go to Ryan Walker. Like I said, he did come in only 2/3 of an inning, but he inherited a mess that Doval left for him, and he just struck out 2 batters. I think it was either bases loaded 1 out or second and third 1 out, and just strikeout, game over. So yeah, I think that there is definitely a possibility that we see a change at that position right now because of the struggles of Camilo Doval. They've been that pronounced, and when every game matters, like, it's not like the Giants are 15 games over 500 and they can kind of afford to wobble a little bit. Every game counts the same, and you're in the thick of a race here and kind of under 500 and trying to get back to that 500 mark. And the Cubs are a team you're directly competing with, and you got a lot of games against the Cubs coming up. So whether it's Walker or Tyler Rogers, I'm firmly in the camp of I'd rather see a guy who can strike people out, like Ryan Walker, whereas Rogers, I think he's underrated. I think he gets too much heat for being as good as he is, effective as he is. But Ryan Walker's the guy I'd like to see, and Doval, maybe just he's got to get right, and I think he will. I don't think you just forget how to pitch. But for now, like I said, in a 1-run game with the heart of the lineup coming up on the road, is he the guy you want to go to? Is he your best option? And I think the answer is clearly no at this moment in time. So coming up in just a minute, we're going to get into the goings-on roster-wise with Kyle Harrison landing on the injured list. What is going on there? And Spencer Bivens making a last-minute kind of assignment to pitch in this game and what he was able to do. So we'll get into all of that momentarily, and before we do, today's episode is brought to you in part by our good friends over at SupplyHouse. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades. SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trademaster program. Every Trademaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. All right, here we go. We are going to get into Kyle Harrison landing on the injured list and Spencer Bivens taking his place. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow breaking down game 1 of this big series in Chicago. I don't have the numbers pulled up, but my memory is telling me the Giants have not played particularly well in Chicago at Wrigley Field in the last many years. And I don't know. They need to change that because they've got, they're in the thick of this race, and playing well against the Cubs could go a long way. So anyway, just a reminder, you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with Sirius XM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. Also a reminder that Eric Engel does Postcast, which you can find live on YouTube on the channel Locked On Sports San Francisco after every or almost every Giants game, Warriors game, 49ers game as well. Eric Engel gives you instant reaction, and you can join that conversation, get in the chat for immediate post-game reaction. And that feed shows up on the Locked On Giants podcast feed, just not on the YouTube channel, because like I said, it has its own YouTube channel, Locked On Sports San Francisco. So be sure to go subscribe to that now if you haven't already. Hit the bell notification, and after the game, check it out. And then for us, the next day for the analysis, check that out as well. So, yes, getting into this news, Kyle Harrison went on the injured list with a right ankle sprain that he sustained in the weight room on Saturday, with his start being scheduled to be on Sunday. So that is an unfortunate blow. It's good that it's not like a shoulder or an elbow or something. It's just an ankle sprain, and it's the landing ankle, right ankle as a left-handed pitcher. It's not the one you're pushing off of on the rubber. I don't know which one would be worse, but it is retroactive to his last start, June 13th. It's not like it starts 15 days from yesterday. So that's kind of the plus side, is hopefully he only has to miss like one start. I actually didn't read anywhere what the prognosis is for how long they expect him to be out with this, but to sprain your ankle in the weight room is kind of just a freak, unfortunate thing. But it did open the door for Spencer Bivens, who's got kind of a very impressive story. He went and played professionally in France for his first bit of professional baseball, and then he played in the independent leagues, and his stuff ticked up, and he was thrown in the mid-90s, and he was signed as an undrafted free agent in May of 2022 by the Giants. And this year in AAA, he was just kind of dominating, putting up a 2.81 ERA in a league that's really tough to pitch in. And he's got a big sinker in the mid-90s, and so he's been able to get the ball on the ground and limit the home run, which is kind of the Giants' MO. And so I was really impressed by the quality of some of his pitches, particularly the sinker. And he gave them 3 strong innings. He did allow a home run, which is kind of ironic given what I just said, but that it happens. So he didn't start. Eric Miller did start, allowed an unearned run, and then Bivens, he went 3 innings. He gave up the homer. That was the only hit that he allowed, the only base runner he allowed, no walks. And I think he retired like the final 8 batters that he faced, and he struck out 4 in those 3 innings of work. And so, really impressive, like to see a mid-90s sinker, 90-mile-an-hour changeup, I feel like I saw. So yeah, the pitch types and velo is what I'm looking for here. So the sinker averaged. I'm looking at Javier Assad. Yeah, here we go. Pitch types and velo. The sinker averaged 94.8 miles an hour through a slider that averaged about 82, and his changeup averaged 90. So, it's a nice little mix there, but it does leave the Giants rotation without Kyle Harrison in a bit of a bad spot. It was already not in a great spot, but right now you're looking at Logan Webb, Spencer Howard, Keaton Wynn, Jordan Hicks, I guess, and then you could maybe throw Spencer Bivens into that mix. But guys on the injured list right now include Blake Snell, Kyle Harrison, Robbie Ray, Alex Cobb, Tristan Beck. So that alone, that would be a pretty strong starting rotation in the sport. And they've got 5 guys on the injured list there who were guys that were on the 40-man roster. When you go on the 60-day IL, you get removed from the 40-man roster. So Robbie Ray, Alex Cobb, Tristan Beck, currently not on the 40-man, but still, that's a 5-man, Snell, Ray, Harrison, Cobb, Beck. That's solid. And it's probably arguably better than their active rotation. I mean, it's a maybe toss-up with Webb and Hicks, but beyond that, Keaton Wynn, Spencer Howard, these are guys who are really struggling, and Bivens has thrown all of 3 major league innings. So get well soon, Kyle Harrison, and they need guys like Snell and Cobb and Ray to come back. And they're also going to maybe have to consider some other guys like Carson Wisenhunt, Hayden Birdsong. Other guys from the minors may have to factor into this when all is said and done here, as their rotation depth just continues to get thinner and thinner. And we'll see if they let Bivens kind of start. I'm always mixing up the names of, so Spencer Howard just got completely roughed up in, I think it was the first game of this series, against the Angels. 2 1/3, 7 hits, 4 walks. And so, not a good outing there. And right now he's in your rotation. And so that just speaks to the lack of depth and talent, perhaps, that they have right now in their rotation, and may need to move on from certain guys who are getting opportunities now. But for now, Bivens, great story and really impressive debut. And we'll see how they use him. If he maybe they'll just do the same thing with an opener and then let him. Apparently he may have kept pitching, but the Giants put up a 9 spot in whatever inning it was, the 4th or the bottom of the 4th. And so because of that long layoff, they didn't want him to go back out there. So anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow, like I said, breaking down Game 1 of the Giants in Chicago facing the Cubs. Big series with the Cubs kind of competing for a wild card spot along with the Giants. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much, so thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.